Good evening. I'd like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, February 5th, and the Portland Board of Public Education is meeting at City Hall in Council Chambers. May I please ask the superintendent to call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Atkinson?
Here.
Mr. Balfons?
Here.
Ms. Bondo?
Présent.
Ms. Figdor?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Morioni? Ms. Thompson?
Here.
Ms. Trevorrow? Mr. Inabanza? Mr. Norris? Ms. Power-Rokowski? Mr. Samuntu?
Présent.
Mr. Abdirahman? And Chair Rodriguez.
Presente. For the report of the chair, excuse me, since our last board meeting, oh my geez. Ms. Thompson, we would not be able to conduct these meetings without you keeping me in shape. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. My apologies for that. For the report of the chair, just had a few things I wanted to bring up. Since our last board meeting, the curriculum committee held their final of the 3 workshops diving into the 3 pathway options for pre-K expansion in the district. We're really thankful of the committee's work and staff for everything that went into putting those workshops together, and of course very thankful for the level of engagement from the board members who've been part of the discussions up to this point. The committee is set to meet tomorrow at 6:30 at Casco Bay High School in their great space, and at that time they're going to make a recommendation to the full board to consider on which pathway, which pre-K pathway we should select. Last week, as part of their annual goal-setting meeting, the City Council discussed the guidance that they're going to give the school board for the FY 2020 school budget. I'm working with our Finance Committee Chair, Trevorrow, and the city's Finance Committee to find the best way of reporting that guidance back to the school board so that then we can continue our process with the budget. I just wanted to also say that it's really important that we're already having these talks with the council and that we've been able to paint a real clear picture of our financial situation and what our priorities are. I think that the school board is committed to having a much more transparent and collaborative approach with the council this year, and so far I think we've done a really good job and we're off to a great start. So again, thank you for everybody's engagement with that part of our work. And last thing, right before the start of this meeting, we had the student reps orientation. So all the student reps sat together and we talked over some of the basic information that we want them to be aware of, a lot of the policy that governs their role here on the board. And then we had an opportunity to answer a lot of the questions. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an incentive or give a little bit of a push to my colleagues here on the board to find ways to engage our student reps in our discussions, not just here in what we're doing at the full board level, but in your committees. You know, their voices, their engagement is critical to what we're trying to build here. And we've seen in the past how much it can really persuade us when we make decisions. So again, having student voices is going to be critical for our work, and we need to be creative in how we include them in our deliberations. That's all that I have for today. So next, the report of the superintendent. Oh no, students. Oh man, I'm telling you, they should give me a cheat sheet to follow, right? Actually, so what we're doing next is really, really special. So we're gonna have the report of the students. I know the cheat sheet is back here. I know. Yeah. I was trying not to point that I left it behind me.
I'm like,
so what we're doing next is really, really special. We're going to have the first ever, speaking of student voice, we're going to have the first ever report from a student representative of Portland Adult Ed. This is, for me, when the board decided to include an adult ed rep on the board, it was great. I talk so much about student voice, right? I just spent a few moments talking about it. So having an adult ed representative here is really, really crucial to our work. I've asked Axels as a way to kind of recognize that this is the first time that we're going to have an adult ed rep give a report. I've asked them to do so here from the podium so that we can literally put a student voice center stage with our work. So Axel, if you're ready, you can take my seat. It's prone to mistakes. Hopefully it's me and not this stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to make my first report in this board. The new year always brings an opportunity to get a fresh start. We all certainly deserve it. I hope you are excited as I am for 2019 and all of the possibility it brings. Not only does the new year bring a time to make personal change, but it's also a time for us at Poland Adult Education to reflect on our program and how we meet the need of our region. Adult education provides opportunities for individuals to improve their reading and writing skill, prepare for college or training program, earn their high school credential, become computer savvy, learn financial and budgeting skill, and so much more. If students have had success in an academic setting in their past, they are invited to come to Poland Adult Education. It's never too late to graduate. Last academic year, at Poland Adult Education, we serve nearly 4,000 students. Poland Adult Education has many programs and services. The first one is academic program. We teach math, language arts, and social study to prepare our students to receive a diploma or enter in the college. The second one is the ESOL program, and English language and literacy. We teach English to immigrants from the literacy level through advanced English. Don't forget, we have more than 2,000 immigrants from 82 countries who took class at Poland Adult Education. The third one is job, readiness, and job skill program. We help students gain skill and certification to advance their career through technology, office skill, and occupational training. The fourth service is lifelong learning and enrichment program. We offer courses in fitness, fine art, home, and life skill, language, personal financial, and wellness. The fifth service is street academic and service homeless youth. We assist homeless youth, young adults with education and employment goal, and offer ISET preparation, credit recovery course, and workforce training. The sixth service is the PA Learning Lab. Is a place for wait-listed students to access computer-based learning programs and for students to enhance their classroom experience. We also have a program to prepare students for the ISET or acupuncture exams, or to work on their resume or conduct a job search. And the last service is a human resources center. We help foreign trained professionals get jobs in their field. To give an example of student we serve at Poland Adult Education, I'm a typical student. I was born in Democratic Republic of Congo, in southeast of my country, in small town called Kolwezi, and I grew up in Bujimai. I'm doctor. I learned when I come in America, I have no word in my tongue. I never speak, I never understand English. But my first step, I take a course in Poland Adult Education. We start in literacy, still in advanced level. Right now, I've been in US for almost 3 years, and in the way of Poland adult education, I get my first scholarship via new Maine Resource Center, and I go in SMCC to take my emergency medical technician. I was certificate for that, and to continue my goal, the first is to improve my English, and I say I want to continue to study again in Poland adult education and to enrich my goal. After that, in Poland adult education, we need something. The first one is an ID to identify who is a student in Poland adult education, because we serve more than 4,000 students. I think that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the report of the superintendent.
Poor superintendent always has to follow the best part, which is the student report. Axel's wonderful job. I know that this had to be difficult first time, and that was spectacular, so
Thank you.
keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Good evening. Happy African American History Month. African American or Black History Month offers educators an opportunity to reflect on representation and equity in education. While this reflection should be ongoing, this month reminds us that it is important and essential that we reflect on what narratives we teach. As part of our Portland Promises focus on equity, increasing our cultural competence as educators is a specific strategy for improving outcomes for our students. One way in which we are looking to achieve this is by decolonizing the curriculum. In the context of Black History Month, that requires us to think about whether we are looking at Black historical figures from over the ages or if we are narrowly focusing on a handful of well-known figures. Are we, in fact, oversimplifying the civil rights movement? Our teachers are actively engaged in this work, and I am grateful to Assistant Superintendent Malia Nally for her leadership on this issue alongside Fiona Hopper and Barrett Wilkinson. Ms. Hopper has worked tirelessly to help our teachers understand and use the Wabanaki experience as a context for this work. She has scheduled a session for our teachers this spring entitled Decolonizing the Curriculum, which will be in early May. We started out our Black History Month with a great parent university session entitled Kids See Color, Talking to Your Children About Race. I was impressed by the turnout for this event, over 100 attendees on a Saturday afternoon. And I was grateful for many of our board members, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Balfons, Ms. Figdor, Ms. Bondo, all actively participated in this activity. On February 12th, we will host the next Parent University session, the screening of Screenagers, an award-winning documentary on teenagers and screens. The film tells the story of families who are struggling over social media, video games, and internet addiction. Authors, psychologists, and brain scientists reveal how screen time impacts young people's minds and its development. Solutions to handle screen time and finding ways to balance digital lives are explored in the film. And after the screening, a panel of psychologists and other experts will lead a question and answer session. Ben Donaldson, Moore Principal, will facilitate the conversation, and the panelists will include Chris Reiger? I always mess this up. Dr. Chris Reiger, Director of our Clinical and Behavioral Support Services at PPS, and Amy Leonard, Social Worker at Rowe Elementary School, and Dr. Rosalind Gerwin, Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Specialist at Maine Medical Center. I know that this is a challenge for many families, and I hope that many of them will join us on February 12th at Portland High School. On another important issue for our families, yesterday the Food Security Task Force delivered its first report on the progress that has been made since last summer in meeting the task force's recommendations. Obviously, this is a work in progress, but I am humbled and grateful for the level of engagement on this issue for so many community stakeholders and parents. Clearly, food security concerns extend beyond the control of the school system, but we are definitely key partners and are committed to continuing to work to do our part to create a system that minimizes food insecurity in Portland. The Enrollment and Facility Study Commission met on Thursday to review the viability, implications, and cost savings of each of the options that are under consideration. The materials from that session have been updated to the EFS website, so you can review them for yourself. The video recording of the meeting is also posted online. I think it's important to understand that the most comprehensive option that was presented, so that's option number 2, would represent a major reorganization of the district, including creating a 10-12 senior high school, creating a 1,400-student junior high school for students in grades 7 through 9, moving fifth graders out of our elementary schools into 2 existing middle school buildings that would serve 5th and 6th grade, and we would close the other one. Altogether, those changes amount to $3.5 million, or estimated to amount to $3.5 million in savings. And while this is a substantial amount, it represents about 3% of our projected budget, which is less than our expected escalation of expenses. So I would also like to point out, while we're on the topic of the enrollment and facility study, that a report in the Portland Forecaster suggested that I had recommended to the board that we move PAE to PHS at our recent workshop. I've discussed this with the reporter, and they have posted a correction. And I just want to be clear that our analysis has determined that PAE would be constrained if it were to move into PHS, and that it would require significant building changes to even make that viable. On Wednesday, as you heard from Chair Rodriguez, the Curriculum Committee will meet and is scheduled to endorse one of the pathways to pre-K expansion. This has been a long time in the making, and I'm anxious to have a definitive strategy for the expansion. I'm grateful again for the level of engagement of our community in this process, and I'm particularly grateful for the work of the committee, as this will be the 4th meeting on this topic in less than a month. I'm also grateful to our partners in Connect Ed, starting strong, for their hard work helping to shape these pathways over the past year and a half. And of course, I'm grateful to our staff, Assistant Superintendent Malia Nally, but also to Sue Olafson and our pre-K teachers. I know that they have concerns about some of the pathways that are being evaluated, and they have made their views known, and I believe well understood. We continue our work with the Barr Foundation grant. We have now received the preliminary report on early warning indicators of falling off track to college success. We're continuing to look at the data with our school leaders and their teams, as well as our partner districts in Hartford, Connecticut, Malden, and Worcester, Massachusetts, and Manchester, New Hampshire. I always get that one right, and I went and I messed it up today. Man, I was actually bragging about that to my wife the other day. Darn it. We look forward to sharing that data broadly with our faculty and staff and with the board in the near future. Councilor Ray has also brought to our attention the earned sick leave ordinance working its way through the city. Our preliminary reading of the proposed ordinance raises concerns for us as we are working with legal counsel to evaluate the implications. Executive Director of Budget and Finance, Alicia Gardner, and Executive Director of Human Resources, Barb Stoddard, will be discussing this with the Board's Finance Committee at its next meeting. Winding down here, guys. Kindergarten and pre-kindergarten registration period is from February 25th to March 8th. Parents can find a link in each of our schools' website to the district's enrollment page, and schools will be distributing information directly to families, and we will be promoting this on our social media. Please help us to spread the word. Also, last week, we activated our text feature for School Messenger. We're continuing to work out the kinks, but our intent is for the system to be able to send succinct messages via text to anyone who opts in, not having to listen to my voice on the text message. Everyone who currently gets School Messenger calls and emails received an opt-in message a couple weeks ago. If you've not yet done so, or if you lost your message, you can find information on how to activate your text messaging on our website or by calling 207-874-8100. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, report of the Secretary, consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2019. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Bondo. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none. Any public comment on the motion? None. Any board discussion? None. All those in favor of approving the I thought I was going to get through it. All those in favor is the M's. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2019, please indicate. It's unanimous with the students voting in favor. Consent items. With the superintendent?
Yes, Mr. Chair, under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district. As required by that policy, all the donations are listed in the board memo accompanying this item. And as has been the practice, each donor will receive a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude as well as for their tax purposes. I would like to thank the many generous contributors to the Portland Public Schools who have made donations of durable goods, goods of substantial value and of historical and commemorative significance. And the contributors for this meeting are, for Riverton Elementary School has received 50 pair of hand-knit mittens. For students from Francis Maho of Portland, Riverton Elementary School also received children's books for their library from Doug Hurling of CMP from Augusta. Lyseth Elementary School received 95 books to give to students from the Portland Rotary of Portland. Paths received a 1998 Dodge Dakota from AAA of Northern New England, also in Portland, and Food Services received a donation to pay off outstanding meal balances for students at Ocean Avenue Elementary School from Dr. Catherine Horatz of Portland. Deering High School received a donation to the school library from Greg Gay of Portland, Maine, in honor of his late brother, who was a 1974 graduate of Deering and an avid reader. And finally, East End Elementary School received a Frigidaire gallery washer and dryer set from Rory Crossman of Biddeford, and we'd like to thank all of the generous donors to the school system.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, for the board, focus on educational issues. We're doing the PEA first?
Yep.
Yeah. We have two presentations. First, we're going to have the Portland Education Association is going to do a presentation for the board to discuss the impact of understaffing on classrooms. I'm not sure, are you going to speak?
Just briefly.
The superintendent's going to prep us for this.
Yep. So as you heard, this is the first of two board focus items today. And the first one is a presentation by our own teachers, members of the Portland Education Association, which has been organized by the PEA. And this session is intended to provide the board with direct information from working teachers on the realities that they face in their classrooms in our districts. So the unvarnished reality. Research is conclusive that, as in any industry, we would do well to listen to the voices of our frontline staff. And so I'm incredibly grateful to Ms. Olofsson for her advocacy on behalf of her members, and I look forward to hearing their perspectives tonight. So, Sue?
So good evening. I'm Sue Olofsson, President of the Portland Education Association, and thank you for providing time to hear from teachers tonight. In anticipation of another year of losing millions of dollars in state funding, and while the district budget for FY20 is currently under development, the PEA hopes that our presentation tonight will help you more deeply understand the impact that position reductions have made and will continue to make on teaching and learning in the district. While the school board hears from central office administrators about the impact of position cuts, the PEA wants board members to hear directly from the teachers about the negative impacts that being understaffed has every single day in their classrooms. Because our time this evening is limited, our goal is not to try to cover every issue of understaffing that exists in our schools today, but to give you a few specific examples that will be described in some depth and know that you will be able to translate those to the other areas that you're probably aware of. Teachers will be presenting in small groups on topics that include the importance of social workers to learning pre-K through adult ed, special education support services and the impact on elementary individualization and classroom safety, how the non-core subjects of music and library programs have declined, and finally, high school academic programs and resources. Following the presentation, there will be time for your questions, and we look forward to those. Thank you. So our first group will be talking about social work importance full span of the grades in the district.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Taryn Southard, and I'm a teacher at Riverton School. Today I want to talk to you about the important role of social work services and the difference between being reactive and proactive to student needs. I want to talk to you not only about my experiences, but the experiences of many of the teachers in the district who work at schools that have a variety of different demographics, but face many of the same challenges. When I first came to Riverton, we had one full-time social worker for roughly 450 students. Other schools in the district share social workers part-time. This means that a social worker may only be at a school 2.5 to 3 days a week. This gives social workers only enough time to fulfill special education requirements and help in moments of crisis. During the days of the week that a social worker is not available, their job falls on teachers and administration. One social worker, for example, told me she talked to her principal through a situation with a student dealing with suicidal ideation over the phone. This also means that social workers miss critical meetings that determine student behavior plans, support, and preventative measures. Further, there isn't staff able to participate in proactive interventions such as friendship or grief groups that help students build skills. In a nutshell, teachers and staffs are reactive to student needs. They are unable to provide social, emotional supports for students because there just isn't enough support. This year, Riverton has 2 full-time social workers, allowing us to become more proactive to student needs. Social workers and teachers have looked closely at our positive behavior interventions and supports. Together, we have monthly meetings where our team utilizes data to inform behavioral interventions, catching students earlier, and allowing for interventions to be specific to student need and shorter in length. We are also able to apply lower-level interventions, freeing up more space for interventionists to help those students who need a higher level of support. Social workers have supported all of our classrooms in creating calming corners, safe spaces where children can go in the classroom to utilize pre-taught calming strategies and return to learning as quickly as possible. Our social work staff has also developed a check-in, check-out program where students meet with a mentor when they first arrive at school and when they leave at the end of the day, checking in on behavioral goals. Last year, our school had 63% of our students with 0 disciplinary reports, and this year we have 71% who have had 0 disciplinary reports. There's more work to be done, but we are seeing a positive change in our school due to the proactive and preventative actions that we're taking. We need your support to continue to make these positive changes. Teachers want to be all for all of our children, but obviously that just isn't possible. It is the job of a social worker to support these basic needs of food, shelter, safety, belonging. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs have to be met before a child can focus on learning. Social workers support the whole child, helping us fulfill Portland's promise. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jill Gorno, and I'm a math teacher at Portland Adult Education. As you heard from Axel's earlier, we have a very large school, and we serve 2,400 academic students in the past year. Yes, 2,400 academic students. We are the largest school in the district. It is inspiring to teach at Adult Ed. If I walk in the door at 8:30, eager students are already there to start their classes, sometimes having just come from working the overnight shift. And our classes continue all day until 8:30 at night, when most students have come to class despite having worked long hours at their jobs that day. They are tired, but they know that PAE gives them their chance to learn. It is their chance to come back to school to get a high school diploma, their chance to learn to read for the first time, their chance to prepare for college, their chance to take history, science, and math toward passing the high set, and their chance to improve their English so they can get a job or get a better job. It is inspiring to teach people who know that education is the key to bettering their lives and reaching their goals. Yet, one of our biggest challenges is that, with more than 2,000 students a year, we have no social worker. Many of our adult students experience trauma and poverty, and many of them are also the parents of the children in Portland Public Schools. The need for social work support does not end with the young students that Taryn just spoke about. If Portland Public Schools wants to serve the whole child, this means serving the whole family. Trauma and poverty manifests itself in our classrooms in many forms. I've been a teacher at Portland Adult Ed for 15 years, and these are the things I have consistently seen happening daily in our school. Students that are too fatigued or stressed to process information and learn in class. I see students exiting class to make phone calls or to go to meetings to manage their food insecurity and housing insecurity. Many students miss class due to physical ailments that are often the result of stress. And some students struggle with undiagnosed mental health problems or substance abuse. We are doing our best to respond to these issues. Currently, teachers at Adult Ed are on the front lines managing them. We rely on empathy as a primary resource. We're starting a student assistance team to try to help students who face challenges outside the classroom. We do our best to get a part-time social work intern when we can. We make use of the Maine Suicide and Crisis Hotline or call community policing when necessary. But clearly, these alone are not best practice without a social worker. If the parents are in crisis, not diagnosed, or receiving the services they need, there is a trickle-down effect for the whole family. So this is one problem that we hope we can solve as we do the important work of educating all of Portland's students. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cathy St Clair. I've taught in Portland for 38 years, and I currently teach a multi-age grade 1-2 team-taught classroom at Rose School. I've been teaching long enough to give value to the following statement, that the past few years of my teaching career have been some of the hardest of all. Why? Services to classrooms have been cut year after year. I'm the only adult in a classroom of 19 students consisting of first and second graders. 3 of my students have a special education IEPs. 1 has a special education 504. 8 are English language learners. 2 are in the RTI process. That's 14 out of 19 who have specified individual learning needs. The other 5 are first and second graders who have various needs as well. Each year I'm teaching more children with learning needs that require one-to-one time with an adult. They struggle with reading or writing. They're slower in math than their peers. They have emotional issues from trauma. They only speak English at school and have no help at home. They are involved in a custody battle. They have fears of not having enough food at home, or they're homeless and living in a shelter. They need one-to-one adult attention, and I am that only adult. But please remember, I have 19 students. 3 of my students have special education IEPs. 1 has a special education 504. 8 are English language learners, and 2 are in the RTI process. Our curriculum in Portland has become one of a workshop model. This means that in reading, writing, and math, I present a mini lesson. The children go off to work while I confer with them individually. This is 40 to 50 minutes, and I'm the only adult that can encourage, reteach, help them decipher a word or spell a word or organize a sentence, redirect, and assist. I am that adult. I spend 5 minutes getting one student started because she can't work by herself, 5 minutes redirecting a student who can't remember what to do or find his or her folder, 10 more minutes solving the behavior issue resulting from a frustrated student, and 10 more minutes deciphering English for another. This leaves me 1 minute and 15 seconds for each of the remaining 16 students. Please remember, I have 19 students. 3 of my students have special education IEPs. 1 has a special education 504. 8 are English language learners, and 2 are in the RTI process. We had a new student arrive in my class last week. She does not know any English. She speaks Portuguese only. She's in my class full time. The only way for us to communicate is with an app on my own iPhone. She needs and deserves one-on-one help. She will receive some ELL services once the testing is done in the schools, but probably only a half an hour a day because she's one of many in the same situation. She looks to me for help all day long, and she deserves to have help all day long, at least right now when every single part of her day is scary. But please remember, I have 19 students. 3 of my students have special education IEPs. 1 has a special education 504. 8 are English language learners, and 2 are in the RTI process. The Center for Public Education documents several findings from research on class size and, more importantly, teacher-to-student ratio. Smaller classes in the early grades, K to 3, can boost student academic achievement. A class size of no more than 18 students per teacher is required to produce the greatest benefits. And minority and low-income students show even greater gains when placed in small classes in the primary grades. Does class size matter? Of course it does. But teacher-to-student ratio in a class is what's most important to me. A good inclusion class should have co-teaching with a special education professional or an ELL professional. Research shows that all students learn better with this model. Because please remember, I have 19 students. 3 of my students have special education IEPs. 1 has a special education 504, and 8 are English language learners, and 2 are in the RTI process. Please consider these points when you discuss class size, caseloads, teacher-pupil ratios. And please, I welcome you to Rowe School and to my classroom to see this in person.
Good evening. My name is Jen Jackson. I'm a special educator and case manager at Lincoln Middle School. I've been teaching for 24 years, 19 as a secondary math teacher, and the last 5 as a middle school special educator. We as special educators have certainly felt the impact of decreased staff and the increased need for support. I echo my colleagues' views that we are understaffed and that this has a direct impact on the services we can provide. Every cut has a ripple effect. While some of the effects are obvious, some can't be anticipated. One of the biggest cuts that we have felt was the loss of the special ed team leaders 2 years ago. The job of the special ed team leader was to provide support to the special ed teachers and was multifaceted. To this day, we still suffer from the loss of these special ed support experts. The team leader handled reviewing paperwork, responding to legal and logistical questions in a timely fashion, supporting case managers to meet legal deadlines for paperwork, ensuring that IEPs and written notices were written with consistency across the district, and handling the more challenging and complex IEP meetings. Without these team leaders, this work is spread out to a liaison teacher in each building and to the compliance secretaries. This resulted in multiple unintended consequences. Compliance secretaries are now tasked with reviewing paperwork in addition to their already heavy workload. It became immediately apparent that it was impossible for them to meet the mandated compliance deadlines. Paperwork is backlogged for weeks, sometimes months, as the secretaries were overloaded with the paperwork from their 20 or so case managers. We have an upcoming state audit, and it is evident that the district's noncompliance will be a big issue. This is opening the district up for the potential of lawsuits, which could be decided on essentially a technicality, our noncompliance. As you continue to make decisions about staffing to the special ed classroom support structure, please keep this in mind. The district employs a variety of special ed teachers with a multitude of skills. The majority are generalists, like me. We run learning labs, reading groups, math groups, provide specialized instruction, and sometimes co-teach. Some are behavior specialists, supporting students with challenging behaviors and writing and implementing behavior plans. And some are teachers working with the cognitively delayed, supporting students who are in the self-contained groups. However, as the number of students with challenging behaviors increase, we need behavior specialists to help them progress in the mainstream environment. Asking generalist special ed teachers to meet the needs of students with severe behavior challenges is like asking a family practitioner to do heart surgery. We do not have the training or experience to adequately meet their needs. If we want to attract and retain quality special ed teachers, especially now that there's a special ed teacher shortage in the state of Maine, the district needs to support them, and we need the staff so that special ed teachers can support each other. The district should ensure that special ed teachers never need to choose between doing compliance paperwork or serving students.
Hi, my name is Grace Steltz. I am the Functional Life Skills teacher at Deering. I've been at Portland for 2 years, and prior to that, I taught in Boston. I've been in the field for about 10. Functional life skills means that I serve the most severe and profound students on the special ed spectrum. All of my students have multiple disabilities, which means they have intellectual disability as well as a physical disability or a speech disability. All of my students are functionally nonverbal. I have 14 students in my room. I also have a co-teacher, and I have 7 ed techs. Right now, we are down 4 ed techs. My students should be working on individual academics, 1-to-1, or at most 1-to-2 with an ed tech or a teacher that is with a program provided by myself. They're working on accessing the community to be effective communicators with the general population. They're learning job skills at work sites, which also require 1-to-1 support in the community. We work with our students on self-care skills such as toileting, bathing, dressing, laundry, cooking, and that also requires 1-to-2 or 1-to-1 support. In our current situation, students are lacking in programming because we do not have enough ed techs to serve their needs. So we've had to cancel community outings. We have had to cancel job sites purely for the safety of our students. These are not students who can be in any setting in our classroom or out in the community unsupervised. And we have had such a staffing shortage and an inability to get subs that we have had to cancel what makes up our program, which is our vocational sites, on several occasions. Not only do we have to cancel our community outings and our academic programming just to keep students safe, but when we meet students that have behaviors such as aggressions, we are pulling staff who are working with students who are non-aggressive to keep the aggressive students safe and our other staff safe. All of this relates back to our staffing shortage, creating a vicious cycle where our staff is overstressed and then call in sick because they're either legitimately getting illnesses due to their fact that they're overworked or that they are just too stressed to come into work that day. Keep in mind that my staff not only deal with the academic and the life skills and the community and the vocation, we are also dealing with students who are medically fragile. We are the first responders to seizures, to mobility issues such as falls. I've had 2 students injure themselves in the classroom this year. We've had students with seizures who we are the first ones there. So we deliver the emergency med if the nurse is unable to get to us fast enough. This is immensely stressful, and if we don't have a team that can support our students, we're not serving our students' basic academic needs and therefore not meeting their IEPs. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak, and it was wonderful to hear from all of you. My Deering High School classroom sounds a lot like your first and second grade classroom, I have to say. My name is Sarah Schmidt. I teach now at Deering. I've taught in the district for 19 years, most of it at Portland High School. I don't have a narrative written, which is odd since I'm an English teacher, but I just want to deliver some facts about Deering, and I hope I have my facts correct. Deering High School currently has approximately 950 students, so we're the largest of the high schools at this point. Almost half of those students are from multilingual families, and roughly 60% are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So we have a very at-risk population. Only about 50% of our students are proficient in English language or meeting the standards, and less than 32% of them are math proficient. So we have a really high needs population. Our guidance counselors have a 270-person caseload per guidance counselor. We have 50 kids in alternative ed with 1 teacher and 1 ed tech and 1 science teacher who is a push-in. Some of our math classes are up to 30 students. We don't have enough books, which is really sad. And I realize that's not a staffing issue, but our staffing is so stressed that we're running around sharing books during the same period, so that I have to leave a classroom to deliver books to another classroom, which is, in my opinion, unconscionable in a public school. We have the same problems with a lack of social workers. We have 2 social workers for our population. Many of our students are traumatized, come from families that are experiencing some of the stresses that we heard of from our peers here. Our nurse, we have 1 nurse to service all 950 students, and she is constantly busy. There are kids in her office all day, every day. And she's not there every day, so there are times when her ed tech has to take on the burdens of a nurse. So there's a great deal of concern that Grace, I think, expressed very articulately about our population. And I think many of you have heard about some of the discipline and attendance issues that we're dealing with at Deering. And I think those issues are very clearly linked to the need for teachers who have the proper training to manage 950 students, half of whom have serious risks. Those teachers need the training to keep those kids engaged and supported and safe and healthy. And it's important to know that of the 50% of our students who are from multilingual families, most of those students are in general education classes with teachers who do not have the training to teach English language learners. So we're doing our best, but clearly that's not enough. And just to echo what Grace already said, our functional life skills classes, our special ed program has very few ed techs at this point, and they are struggling to maintain their programming and the safety of their students with the few personnel that they have. So thank you for your time. I hope this makes a difference. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Omari. I'm the Freshman Academy Leader at Portland High School, also math teacher. I've been teaching for 18 years. I'm going to ask you to please use caution when basing budget decisions around staffing on numbers other than what Sarah just said. So if you base it on those numbers, then great. But basing it on numbers like enrollment, class size, and teacher load, I would caution you against this. Scheduling at a large high school is really complex, and I wish I had time to explain it, but I have 3 minutes. We're trying to offer engaging and interesting electives to young people. We started this with our work with the Nellie Mae grant and offering classes like engineering and computer science and some of the things that kids will need for the future. And we're trying to offer all the required courses that we need to offer so that they can graduate. When we're building that master schedule, things are changing. One of them is staffing. So the budget process happens while we're trying to build this master schedule, and we may lose staffing, but we're not quite sure. At the same time, kids can change their mind about what they want to take, or teachers may find that a student right now might have been ready for a course that at the end of the year, maybe they're not so ready for that course. So it's an ever-changing process, and it's really complex. With any budget cut to staffing, we're not going to be able to meet these needs of scheduling, when typically we can meet the course requests at Portland High at a 90% rate. So 90% of the kids at Portland High right now can take the classes that they signed up to take. But with any budget cut to staffing, that won't happen. Teachers do far more than teach. I'm going to tell you the 10 things I came up with just in starting to scroll things down. Teachers are planning, and they're doing this collaboratively with other teachers. They're teaching 5 to 6 classes, content classes, on top of also teaching learning labs. They are grading and giving feedback to teachers, 120 teachers, sometimes 140 students, sorry. They are meeting with students to allow retakes and revision. Hopefully you've heard a lot about proficiency-based education. So with that comes more opportunity for students to revise and retake work. So we're working with students on that. Teachers are meeting with students who missed classes. Teachers and staff are monitoring the hallways, the cafeteria, the entrance to Portland High School to make sure that our building is safe. Teachers and staff are building relationships with students. This could be having lunch with a student or a student group that hasn't been having a great time at lunch. It could be listening during your prep to a student that needs a listening ear. Teachers and staff are attending meetings, IEP meetings, 504 meetings, parent meetings. I could go on and on. Teachers and staff are meeting together to develop and implement supports for students similar to what you've heard. ELL teachers and special ed teachers are meeting with regular ed teachers to plan content. But I will tell you this, at Portland High, we lost recently our ELL collaboration with regular ed teachers because our new enrollment for ELL students at the level 1 doubled in size from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So teachers that were slated to meet with me to talk about how best to support regular ed teachers who are teaching access level 3 and above students, we don't have that anymore because now they're teaching more classes. When making budget decisions regarding staffing, please look beyond the numbers. Consider what it will take to make true the Portland Promise. All students will be prepared and empowered. Notice it doesn't just say prepared. So when you look at the whole child, we're talking about more than teachers just teaching classes. Teachers take that responsibility in meeting the Portland Promise very seriously. We cannot reach that goal at Portland High School with any less staffing than we currently have. In fact, each year we look for creative ways to do more for students with the current staff we have. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Cathy Hanley. I'm the librarian at King for the last 5 years. During my 15 years in the district, I've worked at all grade levels, and I've seen librarian cuts many times. 10 years ago, we had full-time librarians in each high school and middle school, with elementary schools getting library coverage 4 to 5 days a week. The current data about our libraries is shocking. In our district of nearly 7,000 students, we have 6.5 librarians. The elementary schools and 1 high school only have library ed techs. The state recommends that we have at least 2 more librarians and 7 more library ed techs. This data is supported through the EPS staffing ratio report. Our elementary librarians currently cover 2 to 4 schools each. Most of our schools have library collections of 10 to 13,000 books, and yet students' access to libraries is often limited by staffing or coverage. Some elementary students don't even see their school librarian, they only see the ed tech. 2 of our middle school libraries are closed 2 to 2.5 days a week because the librarian for each school is half-time. At one of our high schools, school staffing is so low that the librarian is pulled to cover study halls, again closing the library. In comparison, the high schools in towns surrounding Portland all have a librarian and at least 1 library assistant. Portland has the highest literacy needs and the fewest librarians to support our students. Our teachers and students are clamoring for more library time, more support, more collaboration, more co-teaching. Librarians teach important and necessary skills. Our students need to be able to do real research and distinguish between fake and real news. It takes master's level skill to build and maintain library collections that meet the needs of our diverse populations. When a library is understaffed, it means the library curriculum is not being taught equally across the district. Students are entering middle and high school with varying degrees of preparedness for more complex research. There are many times a librarian has to choose between teaching classes or keeping the library open due to lack of coverage. We are constantly trying to collaborate with teachers with our hands tied due to the time and staffing constraints. The school library of today is not the school library that we all attended when we were kids. One teacher said to me recently, librarians don't just sit there checking books out. They help me teach my students to be critical thinkers and lifelong readers. And they help me give their learning and assignments much more depth. Please consider at least maintaining our current staffing or even trying to increase it to meet the state recommended levels so we can provide the best services to our students and teachers. Thank you.
Do you play or have you played a musical instrument? Do you aspire to play a musical instrument? Does your child play? Your neighbor? Have you ever attended a concert? Do you have a playlist? Have you been in a store and hummed along to the music in the department while you shop? I'm Audrey Cabral. I'm the coordinator of the Portland Public Schools Music Department, as well as a band director. I've been here for 30 years. Most of the music you hear is played by musicians who started in the public school. Portland has one of the top 20 metropolitan orchestras in the country, as well as a wide variety of choices for all levels of musicians. PPS's music program continues to be squeezed to its core, to the point where we can say, yeah, we offer music ensembles. Rachel Ray, who you may know as a cook and author, who was educated in the public school, notated, we also had time for physical education, we had art, we had music. Everybody knew how to play an instrument in my school. All of that has been stripped away. Students have no time to be creative. When school districts are faced with budgetary issues, music and the arts is usually one of the first subjects looked at to be cut. We are often compared to extracurricular activities, but we are co-curricular subjects. As Jewel, the singer, states, some people think music education is a privilege, but I think it's essential to being human. At one time, the Portland Music Department had 25 music teachers. We are now at 15. These cuts have happened primarily in the band and strings area. We have one teacher at each high school for all music: band, chorus, jazz band, music theory, music appreciation, class piano, class guitar, musical theater, percussion ensemble, steel pan ensemble, AP online music theory. We have one middle school band director for the middle schools, one band director for all the elementary schools, one high school and middle school string teacher, and one elementary string teacher. We're often compared to more robust area programs continually, yet those programs usually have more than one music teacher at their high schools and at their middle schools. Due to the diminished number of music teachers in Portland, high school music teachers are not able to teach to their strength. Middle school music ensembles meet twice a week, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and are scheduled while other students are in study halls or doing makeup work. And it is usually band, chorus, and orchestra that tend to be canceled when there are spelling bees and geography bees, visiting guest artists, speakers, delays to the start of school. Elementary band and strings are constantly asked to schedule their class during only recess and lunch. Recess, when kids can play with each other, be outside, play games, get exercise. Think back to your 10-year-old self. Would you have chosen band or strings at that age, or would you have gone out to recess? Before we lost music teachers, we were able to have longer band and string rehearsals due to the fact that we had more teachers to serve those schools, and those ensembles were not meeting during lunch and recess. In the Portland Public Schools Promise Comprehensive Strategic Plan, goal number 2, the whole student. All PPS students will develop skills, habits, mindsets they need to engage in and contribute to our diverse city and ever-changing world. Strategy number 2, ensure all students have access to music. To quote Arnie Duncan, former Secretary of Education, arts education can help build the case for the importance of a well-rounded, content-rich curriculum, significantly boosts student achievement, and is essential to stimulating the creativity and innovation that will prove critical to young Americans competing in a global economy. Thank you.
So Thank you so much for listening. They could have done a lot more. They pared down their comments by half. And I know we've gone a little bit over the time that we thought we were going to use. We've run a little bit out of time for your questions. We're still happy to answer some questions, or you can funnel them through me, and I can, through email, and I can send it to teachers and have them reply all to you. So whichever you prefer.
I think we can spare a few minutes if anybody had any questions to bring up. I don't think I want to not recognize anybody that wanted to say something. So, any questions? Any comments? Pardon? I'm sorry, Ms. Figdor.
I have a question about music education. If you were to put additional resources into what's you're describing as a really strained program, where would you target those resources? First.
Yeah.
Where would you first target?
I would first target them hiring at least one more teacher who could help serve some of the high school needs of oversized classes that they have, and to allow them to teach to their strengths at their high schools so that the high schools could share a band teacher for each school and chorus. I'd also, to instruments, we lend out our instruments to students, and I'd say more than half of our instruments are older than I am, and they're pretty well beaten up, and we keep putting Band-Aids on them, and so we try to provide them to students so that they play and continue to play, and so that's where I'd start, and I really would start with looking at the schedule at the elementary level, because without that firm cement, and we just don't have the schedule down there that helps build a robust music program up at the higher levels.
Ms. Bonda?
I'm not a social worker. I'm a second grade teacher, but
Okay.
yes, I would
But
love to.
Yes, it's about everything that you talk about the social worker, because this is the best. Those are the most reason then we try to decrease the achievement gap, because when we don't target it specific on the early age to try to identify those needs, we're missing the whole pictures. So we've been talking for years about the achievement gap. This is exactly why we've been missing that voice from you, and thank you so much. I just need about 2 questions.
Yes.
The social workers, do they have any kind of training, having a cultural competency training? Do they have some of the bilingual support that they need? And how many students leveraged by day a social worker can afford to support?
Cultural competency, we this year have had some training. So our social workers at my school go to a district-wide training on cultural competency, and then they come back. So I'm not quite sure, and maybe Superintendent Botana can answer that question as to who is leading that training, but I know it's an organization that's leading that training and training those social workers to come back to our school and train staff on cultural competency. So I do know that work is happening. And then in terms of how many students that they can reach in a day, that really varies depending on whether or not there's an emergency that they have to attend to during a day. And I personally can't speak to how many students they have on their caseload, but I know going from one social worker for 450 students, she did as much as she could, but it was really almost impossible to get a hold of her simply because she was always with a student or attending to an emergency. Whereas now I actually feel like if I have a student who's having a crisis, I can call a social worker up and she can come on down and help me with that student. Or if we're in an RTI meeting and a student is in need of more support, she has a space on her on her schedule where she can meet with that student or form a group of students that have similar goals and be able to meet with those students together.
And I think I will ask the superintendent to come and visit the Riverton because I really want to get more deep question and to see how many EdTech bilingual you have.
Yeah, we would love to have you, please.
Exactly, so I will ask you to do so.
Please,
thank you so much for what
we
you
would
do.
love that.
Yes, Mr. Invanza. Lori, can you use your mic? Sorry.
Firstly, I want to point out that in my wellness class, I had an assignment where I had to write a letter. And in that letter, I came across some research. And research that startled me was that 90% of fourth graders report being bullied. And most of those fourth graders, by the time they reach ninth grade, develop a lot of mental wellness issues. And most of those ninth graders, when they go on to college, tend to break down simply because they were not given enough treatment or given enough attention during the school. Now, we should understand that as the Portland Public Schools, we are tasked with preparing students so that by the time they finish college, they're able to face life, the real world out there. And I believe that it is kind of like a necessity that we need to bring utmost urgency to check that we have social workers, especially in elementary school. Because if 90% of fourth graders can report that they're being bullied, that has a psychological impact that cannot be erased. And I feel as if we're able to allocate amounts of money to increase the amount of pay of substitution teachers, I think we are able to also allocate enough funds to make sure that we have more social workers. I believe that is a sector that we need to focus on, and I urge the board that we focus on this and not like just pass it aside and be like we're gonna do some work, but we actually need to like bring more urgency on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll just say that the Portland Promise guides our work. Information, like what we heard from our teachers today, helps to shape our values. Budgets and policies should be an expression of our values. You know how when you drive around town, you see those signs in the neighborhoods that say, drive like your kids live here? When we vote like your kid has an IEP. Vote like your kid is an ELO student. Vote like your kid is at the bottom of that achievement gap graph. You know what I mean? Put yourself in the shoes of these teachers and see the realities that they're facing. And then express your values through those budgets and policies. And listen to these people, these young men and women that are in our board. We're so lucky to have that voice. If they're telling you that they can identify a smart way for us to meet their needs, I think we should listen. Thank you. Superintendent?
So I will just conclude by saying that, as I mentioned in the introduction, we would do well to listen and to understand the experiences of the people that are on the front lines of the Portland Public Schools. Our Portland Promise people goal clearly states that we can only be as good as our ability to attract, support, and retain the most talented and diverse group of educators. So clearly from this, you know that there is a significant amount of work that we continue to need to do, and I could not agree more with Chair Rodriguez's sort of admonishment that everything that we do around our budget is an expression of our values. And so I'm extremely grateful. I want to thank all of you for the hard work that went into preparing for this presentation. I think you did an amazing job of representing the reality that you live with every day in your classrooms in a way that honors your profession and your professionalism. So thank you very much for that. I also want to take a moment to thank Sue for her leadership. As the board knows, she recently announced that she will be retiring at the end of this school year, and Sue has been a terrific partner to me in my transition. We've met every other week to keep the lines of communication open and problem solve around our challenges. She's an amazing advocate for the Portland Public Schools, and obviously she cares about her members. But above all, I've found that she cares about the well-being and success of the district, all of its students and all of its staff. So Sue, as you ride off into the sunset, and know that we are absolutely going to have more of this in the coming months, but I would like to just take a moment to thank you for the countless hours that you've invested in helping me to understand the Portland Public Schools. As I said, we'll honor you again, but I did not want to pass up this opportunity today. And so thank you also for organizing today's presentation and for your ongoing partnership.
Next, on the second item on our board focus on educational issues is something really, really cool. So the students at Casco Bay High School, and I think
So yeah, we also have Portland High School, so
that's right. Yeah. So we have a couple of projects that students are going to present. The superintendents will set it up for us.
And I think all of our board focuses are cool, so I don't want to, you know, it's just like as a teacher, I want to say that all of our kids are good, and, you know, so, yeah. So.
Everything cannot just be great and cool.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the second board focus tonight is a presentation by Portland Public School students who are working hard to make us a more energy efficient and sustainable school district. We will have a presentation by Portland High School's Environmental Club speaking about their efforts to improve recycling and composting and other energy-saving efforts at Portland High School. And after that, Casco Bay students will be discussing their Solar Rise proposals, which, as many of you know, were featured in Mayor Strimling's State of the City address. As I've said many times, and as I know has been reiterated today by Chair Rodriguez, one of the many things that impress me about Portland Public Schools is the high degree of agency among our students. Our future is theirs to shape, and I am gratified that this future is bright with such smart, hardworking, and thoughtful student leaders at the helm. And so with that, I think Cathy, Martin, are you going to set up your students, or they know what they're doing and they're coming and doing it first? Or all right.
Are they going to use that?
Yeah. You guys are doing a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes. So we're going to give us a second so that we can slide out and then introduce yourselves and.
Hi. Okay, so my name is Lucy Med.
And I'm Rose Watson.
And we're both juniors at Portland High School and the leaders of the Environmental Club. And we're here to talk about the grant we received from Maine this fall to install hand dryers in our bathrooms.
Okay, so just to get to know us and our reputation in the city, in 2007 we were the recipients of the Maine Eco Excellence Award for our work in making our school greener.
In 2014, we were the recipients of the Maine School Recycling Grant, which allowed us to get recycling bins in every classroom.
This past year, we focused most of our club's efforts on improving and renewing our courtyard, which is really special to our school. Here are some pictures of what it was, what it became. Yeah. Okay, so. Yeah.
So at the beginning of this year, we brainstormed about different ways that Portland High School Environment Club could lessen the carbon footprint at PHS. We decided to take on a project to reduce our waste output. Our project entailed the installation of hand dryers in our bathrooms to reduce the amount of paper towels that we use. In the first stages of our project, we did some research and discovered that we save 41.3 grams of CO2 per use of a hand dryer instead of paper towels. We eliminate 720 pounds of trash per year. We save $150 in labor costs every month of the school year. We save $360 in paper towel expenses per month, and that equals $3,600 in paper towels expenses per year.
Okay, so we find the Dyson Airblade project particularly interesting because it's a student-driven initiative. It was a problem presented by students, and then it was also solved by students. Approximately 800 students attend Portland High, meaning that there are at least 1,800 trips to the bathroom made daily. That, hopefully, these students are using or washing their hands and use like 2 sheets of paper towels to dry them. That equals approximately 1,600 paper towels thrown away every day for a whole school year. That's a lot of paper towels. And, oh no, okay, sorry. And by installing these, sorry, not paper towels, hand dryers, we're hoping to eliminate that 700 pounds of trash that we produce every year. Okay. Also, if we're stepping away from the monetary savings, we can look at the culture that these hand dryers are going to have, or the positive cultural impacts that these hand dryers are going to have on our high school. Not only are they going to spread awareness about being environmentally friendly, it's also going to promote conversation among students who are ill-educated around this subject. Yeah, we're really excited as a club not only to continue inputting, we're really excited to continue with projects like this as a club, but we're also really excited to keep talking to students and encouraging them to join our club and our club discussions and contribute to solutions like this one.
So this past November, we received a $4,000 grant from Maine to purchase 7 energy-efficient hand dryers from Dyson that will go in 7 of our bathrooms to replace the paper towel dispensers.
Okay, so we have received these hand dryers and we're really excited about them. They're down in the maintenance building and hopefully they will be installed by the end of the month. We are really excited about their installation so that we can track the impact that they have in the next year compared to the past year and the energy that we've used in the school. We are hoping to use these numbers that we record to promote replication within all of Portland Public Schools and even within the city, because we know and we're excited to reap the benefits of getting rid of paper towel dispensers and using hand dryers. Thank you. Okay.
And so now the Solar Rise students, or I guess, do you know if people want to ask questions?
Did you guys have any questions to ask the Portland High School students? I thought that was just the numbers, right? Like the amount of waste that a school produces, and most of us probably don't even stop and think about it. Again, great idea. I love that it was an issue that was brought up by students and installed by students. That's awesome. Like full circle. Next.
So I also want to recognize you for the work in both getting the grant and then in following through and doing the advocacy work that you're doing. So Ms. Martin and the students, thank you very much for that. And I know that you're passionate about all aspects of trying to reduce our footprint in the district overall and at Portland High. So thank you very much for that. And then our second half of this focus issue is around the Solar Rise project coming out of Casco Bay, and I know that we have several Casco Bay students. And Mr. Pierce, are you setting this up, or who's? All right.
Good evening. My name is Siri Pierce. This is Lucia. They can introduce themselves.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lucia Durrani.
I'm Lily Kerrigan.
I'm Brianna Holston.
I am Amy Ishimwe.
And we're all Casco Bay High School juniors representing Solar Rise Portland. So last year, our school's environmental club researched the possibility of installing solar panels on our roof at Casco Bay High School, but this idea quickly transformed into a much larger plan to solarize all of our schools. And we developed a name, Solarize Portland, and partnered with students and teachers across Portland, as well as Sierra Club's Climate Action Team and Revision Energy, as well as city officials, the mayor, to craft a proposal to share with the city.
And collectively, we created a list of goals. We will promote and educate city leaders, students, and other stakeholders about the values and necessity of using existing city properties and roofs for a series of solar arrays that will bring the city's demonstratable closer to the goal of being carbon neutral by 2040. We will use our expertise, resources, and advocacy to push the city leaders to develop an RFP for this project and a plan of action to see it through within the next year. We will use our expertise, resources, and advocacy to push the school board for revisions of a district energy policy so that it is in line with the city's goals of carbon neutrality as well as the Portland Promise. And our school and our city and school facilities will reflect our community's values of being a teachable tool for sustainable and environmental stewardship.
The current plan for solar arrays will cover 79% of the electrical needs of 6 Portland schools. Revision Energy is responsible for drafting this preliminary plan, and solar panels would be installed on top of 6 school buildings with the most ideal roof space and conditions and access to sunlight, according to Revision Energy. These panels would have peak power generation of 2.2 megawatts, and the proposed schools are Casco Bay High School Paths, which uses 951 megawatts but could produce 547 megawatts. King Middle School, which currently uses 286 megawatts but could produce 288. Riverton Elementary School, which uses 1,100 megawatts but could produce 927. East End Community School, which uses 446 megawatts but could produce 250. Ocean Avenue Elementary School, which uses 363 megawatts but could produce 195. And Lyseth Elementary School, which uses 187 megawatts but could produce 423.
This is just an idea of what a plan could look like. So we ask that the city develops an RFP for this project within the next year. This means requesting the best deal for a potential solar array from companies across Portland and the state of Maine. A conservative estimate from Revision Energy, so the plan that we just previewed, would cost a little less than $5 million. However, one potential way to finance this project is through a power purchase agreement, and this allows the city or school department to buy the panels at little to no upfront cost, and then the city or school department would pay investors instead of utilities, and the cost per year would likely be slightly more than we currently pay CMP, but how much depends on a few different factors. So one of these factors is the scale of the project. So ultimately, the larger the project, the more cost-effective it could become. It also depends on federal and state incentives for solar. Right now, federal incentives are strong, however, they're likely to worsen by 2020. But state incentives are likely to become more compelling in the coming years. And another factor is whether or not the city would decide to buy the panels outright. So we would have that option the first year, the 5th year, or the 10th year in to buy the solar panels from this investor. And also whether or not we can find a consistent foundation of funding or corporate support that would impact the cost of the project. And the final factor that might impact the cost of a project of this scale is whether or not there was a concurrent effort among students and schools to conserve energy, so overall spending on energy went down. And all of these factors would impact the cost, but ultimately we can't tell you what that would look like unless the city develops an RFP for this project. But that being said, we can tell you what the impact of solarizing our schools would have on our community, and Brianna's going to tell you about that.
Along with the plethora of environmental benefits, the panels would promote environmental stewardship among our school communities and encourage schools to develop science curricula that center on renewable energy as a solutionary measure to global climate change. The Solarize Your World intensive course at Casco Bay High School last month is an example of the educational opportunities that could be available for all Portland Public Schools students. In January, I was part of the Solarize Your World intensive. For this intensive, Casco students grappled with the usage of solar panels. We did labs to better understand how they work and the mechanisms behind solar arrays. For fieldwork, we visited Revision Energy and spoke with experts about solar panels, and eventually went to see the Ocean Avenue solar array. After building this background knowledge, we began our own solar array designs for our own households. This project gave us the necessary experience to create models for a full CBHS solar array. In teams, we prepared multiple designs for CBHS and compared them. Here's an example of one of our prototype designs created by my team member. This design is roof-based and is not easily seen from the ground. It generates 385,828 kilowatt hours annually. However, my team for the CBHS solar array chose this for the final design. It is a ground-based design and generates 266,205 kilowatt hours annually. This design is able to be seen from Allen Avenue, which means that the public will be able to view the solar array. Having a solar array in public view is a great opportunity to educate people about solar energy and dispel the beliefs about solar arrays detracting from a site's appearance. The public exposure of this design was ultimately the reason our team chose it as the final design. Overall, taking this intensive helped me gain knowledge about solar energy by doing hands-on experiments and designing real, relevant projects. I believe that installing a solar array on CBHS or other Portland public schools could be a great way to teach students of all ages about solar energy and environmental science.
People may ask why solar? Solar has extensive environmental benefits. As climate change intensifies, sustainable fossil fuels alternatives are becoming more crucial to the well-being of the planet. The city has already committed to prioritizing sustainably by setting the goal for the city operations to run 100% renewable energy by 2040. This is an important step towards meeting this goal. It is the responsibility of our generation to ensure that we have a healthy planet for our children. We demand that our leaders take concrete action in order to mitigate the effects of climate change in our world. And the students of Portland are ready to see this change. We created a video of the voices of Portland students across the district. Let's hear what they say about this idea.
So the first question is, can you tell us like one place that you love in Portland or Maine that you want to protect, or it could be a thing?
Standard Bakery Company on Commercial Street, because like it might get flooded.
Trails.
Our ski mountains.
Fort Gorgeous.
Oceans.
Forests. Back Bay.
The harbor.
Old Port.
I like everywhere that's outside.
And why do you think it's important that kids speak up about this issue?
It's good for kids to speak up about it because like when like it's like sort of like maybe when they're grown-ups they might like it might get like really flooded and like So they have to speak up about it when they're younger, so when they're grown up, it doesn't happen.
Why do you think the City of Portland should support solar energy and solarize our schools?
Well, if we want to if we want to survive on this planet, I mean, everyone is going to have to eventually turn to new renewable energy. And why not start now to get a head start? Or just start, I mean, we're going to have to switch eventually. If we don't do anything now, then the people who are really going to suffer is the people who are younger now. So we gotta, unless we do something, then we're gonna have a very different life than our parents.
If we stop it now, it would stop, but if we don't stop it now, it'll just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and we'll have to move to Mars.
It's not really their generation that's getting impacted, it's us. And if they don't listen to us, then we're just not gonna have very good lives. Fossil fuels will probably run out eventually, but the sun will never run out, as far as we know.
Blow up.
Yeah. You never know. It might.
How does this project make you feel?
Empowered!
Optimistic!
We want change. We want solar energy. Yeah. Solarize Portland! Solarize Portland! Solarize Portland!
Let's do this.
Thank you for your time.
At the end. Do we have any questions? Anybody wanted to discuss any information? Ms. Victor?
I just want to commend the Casco High School students for coming forward with this proposal. It's really inspiring to see, and I want to work with you as we move forward to try and make this a reality. I had a question about about the scope of the proposal. So you talked about there would be solar arrays on 6 schools, and you reduce energy consumption by, or it would meet, the needs of 79% of the energy needs. Is that across the 6 schools or across the district?
Just across the 6 schools.
Okay.
We've been talking about even that's just one idea.
Do you mind coming up to the podium so people who might be watching can hear you as well?
Sorry. I think that would just be for the 6 schools, 79% of those 6 schools. However, we've been talking about expanding that proposal. We wanted to make it more reasonable initially, but I think the mayor is interested, at least in our conversations with him, and even expanding it to meet the needs of a higher percentage of our district's energy consumption.
Great, thank you so much.
No, nothing else. Thank you guys so much. That was excellent and such important and timely information for us to hear.
And I just wanted to also commend you and thank you for the initiative. And, I'm obviously always incredibly proud of all of our students. And I know that that part of what Casco Bay is about public policy change. And so this is a great example of you bringing something forward that's concrete and is about public policy. And so I also want to let you know that it is on our agenda for the Operations Committee as we do our agenda setting this week to look at solar energy and just energy improvements across the district as part of our agenda. So stay tuned because we are looking at that.
Ms. Bigdo, go ahead.
I just want to encourage you to stay on us. Change takes a lot of work. You've come to us with a really good first step, and please, keep working to help the city move forward with this, because your voice is really powerful so far, and I think will continue to be to help make.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on. Next, New business, consideration and action to approve a contract agreement between Portland Board of Public Education and the Portland Education Technician Unit from September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2021. Is there a motion? Ms. Victor? Seconded by Ms. Bondo, thank you. Will the superintendent please speak to the motion?
Yes. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve the 2018 through 2021 contract with our Educational Technician Unit. This is the conclusion of a process that began last summer. Completing any contract is always a happy time, but this one is one that I am particularly pleased to bring to the board. We negotiated this contract using a negotiating method called interest-based bargaining. Throughout the process, both parties brought forward proposals grounded in a set of interests and worked together to develop solutions that would help to advance those interested. I am also pleased because our educational technicians work extremely hard. They are the glue that holds so much of our day-to-day operation together. I believe we have worked hard to achieve a contract that recognizes their importance to the organization, professionalizes their standing within the organization, and sets us up to continue to work as a team to meet our Portland Promise goals. So I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director for Human Resources, Barb Stoddard, who will provide specific details on the contract. Barb has done an amazing job shepherding us through this process, and particularly making sure that all of those diverse conversations, diverse ideas were memorialized as required in the final contract. So I'm going to turn it over to Barb.
Thank you. So that's a really tough act to follow, especially with a collective bargaining agreement. But saying that, I am very excited to bring this forward as well. So as the superintendent just stated, the association and the administrative teams used interest-based bargaining for this round of contract negotiations, which was a first time for us. We spent about 6 months, starting in June, to discuss a list of issues that was of mutual interest for both groups. So tonight, we're bringing forward for the full board approval a 3-year collective bargaining agreement that will run from September of 2018 through August of 2021. The EdTech unit membership voted last week to ratify this contract. As we discussed in our executive session on January 8th, if you recall, this 3-year contract simplifies and streamlines many things while also honoring our staff through competitive wages, employee engagement, and a professionalization of staff. As highlighted in the board memo and as we discussed at the executive session, the new agreement includes a number of things, such as a single salary schedule for the 3-year contract period with new placements in year 1 and step increases in year 2 and year 3. It has a proposed starting wage that makes Portland a premier employer. And as you heard earlier, we have some staffing issues with ed techs, and this is going to help, we hope. This obviously will attract new people, and particularly in the labor market that we're currently in. The new contract, the salary schedule, eliminates dead zones within the schedule itself, and this really helps with retention of our more veteran employees. The new contract offers the option of pay averaging for employees in the bargaining unit, and this is for folks who are interested in receiving their school year wages over 26 pay periods. The contract eliminates storm day pay. This creates parity across our bargaining units. It provides an opportunity for employee voice during position reassignment. It establishes notice requirements for resignation and retirements and clarified some language around vacation days. It also creates an opportunity for a more relevant building-based professional development, which really is about creating opportunities for learning engagement for our employees. Finally, the teams also agreed to conduct a collaborative review of the district's contractual use of BHPs, those are behavioral health professionals, through an MOU agreement. So I'd like to provide Michelle Lawless, who's the president of the EdTech Union, with just an opportunity to say a few words, and then I'm happy to open the floor to questions before you have a chance to deliberate.
Well, first, while I agree with the superintendent that all these presentations are awesome, I have to say it's really super cool when we get to hear from the students. First of all, I want to thank Roberto Rodriguez and the district staff who are members of the negotiating team for such a positive and worthwhile experience. We believe that this contract reflects the collaboration and the thought that went into this process, and it speaks directly to the relevance of our work and our worth. The elimination of the 10-year dead zone, as Barbara highlighted, and the option for pay averaging, and increasing steps help to create the financial stability that attracts and retains strong employees. The collaborative work groups, which will be populated by both ed techs and district staff for the purpose of reviewing professional development and the use of outside BHPs, ensure that the personnel working directly with our students are the most highly qualified and appropriate for those positions. And finally, the elimination of snow days, clarifying language around vacation days, and establishing a notice requirement for resignations and retirements is mindful of the budget constraints that the district faces. So for all of these reasons, I encourage all of you to please vote for this contract. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the motion?
Can I just clarify that for the students in particular, that we are not eliminating snow days?
Sorry, yeah. We'll send them a copy of the contract. That's really funny, Harry. Mr. Balfans, go ahead.
This is a question that I would have for every contract. I know we did the interest-based bargaining, but did our attorneys review the finalized contract?
Yes, of course.
Any other questions? Are there any public comment on the motion? None? Any board discussion? None? I'll just add that being the board rep through this negotiation process, this is my second unit working through negotiations, and we used a different approach. We used the interest-based bargaining approach, and I agree with Michelle. The experience was incredibly rewarding. I know I learned a lot. It was incredibly insightful into the role of ed techs because the discussions just lend themselves to be value-driven discussions about the work. So I really appreciated the effort that everyone put into it, and certainly the experience, the learning experience that it was for me. I wish we were capable of meeting all the needs of every individual that cares for our children, all teachers, ed techs, every single person. I wish we had blank checks. But that's unfortunately not the way that we can operate. So given the restrictions that we had, I think that this contract does meet a lot of needs, and it does make us a stronger district. So I'm looking forward to supporting it in a moment. Having said that, all those in favor of approving a contract agreement between the Portland Board of Public Education and the Portland Educational Technician Unit from September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2021, please indicate. It is unanimous, with the students voting in favor as well. Thank you, everybody. Yes, that's good. You can do that. All right, what's next? Consideration and action to ratify the contract with F. David Lewis as owner representative on the Lyseth renovation project. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Balfans. Will the superintendent please speak to the motion?
Mr. Chair, as part of the Buildings for Our Future for-school bond, funding was identified for an owner's representative / clerk of the works, Now that the licensed buildings for a future project is slated to move to the contracting phase, staff have procured someone to fulfill this role. The memo that you have in your packet outlined the process that staff followed to select the contractor firm of David Lewis Construction Administration. The proposed contract went through the city's procurement process and was subsequently reviewed by our attorneys at Drummond Woodsum. The term of the agreement is from January 7th of 2019 through the project schedule, so that's for an estimated duration of 27 months, ending in May of 2022. The total contract for that period of time will not exceed $161,000, and the details on how that is broken out in the different phases of the project is also included in the memo. So Mr. Stilfen is here to answer any questions that you might have about the selection process and the procurement, and so that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the motion? Mr. Balpens?
I'm going to repeat my question from the previous contract. Did our attorneys review this contract?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there any public comments on the motion? Seeing none. Any further board discussion? None. All those in favor of ratifying the contract with F. David Lewis as owner's representative of the licensed renovation project, please indicate. Unanimous with the students voting in favor. Thank you. And then personnel items. Let me flip the page.
So we have on the agenda today 2 probationary teachers that are being proposed for appointment, and both of those are replacements for positions that have become open over the course of the year, and so the information is in your packet.
I'm going to read it so we can have a motion and second it on paper. So consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, probationary teachers. Is there a motion? Mrs. Davis, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Superintendent just spoke to the motion. Any questions? Pardon?
Sorry, I just jumped the gun.
That's all right. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, there's no public comment on personnel items. Any board discussion? None. All those in favor of approving the personnel items, probationary teachers, please indicate. Unanimous with the students voting with the majority. And because it is before the hour of 10 p.m., before 9 o'clock actually, but given that it's before the hour of 10 a.m., is there any public comment on items not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting? Ms. Davis, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. All those in favor, please indicate. It's unanimous with the students voting the majority. Thank you.